Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today I'm talking about the record that was broken last night with Alex Johnston. For though I think most people listening to the podcast would know by now what happened last night. Last night Alex Johnston became the greatest try scorer in the history of the if you want, for the NSWRL or the NRL, in NRL history. So, it's only, apparently, from what I have heard, it is the second time that the record has been broken in 102 years. So, the record was broken in 1924. I can't remember the player's name who broke it in 1924. And then he went on, and then the person that broke it after that was, of course, Ken Irvine. So Ken Irvine broke the record in 1969 when he was playing at North Sydney. He then went on to play, he played another season after 1969 at North Sydney. Then apparently there was bad blood between him and the coach. He then went to the Manly Seagulls, played 3 seasons there, won 2 premierships, and after the back-to-back 72-73 premiership, he ended up retiring, finishing on 212 tries. Now, a lot of people thought that this record would never get broken, because really, people have got close-ish, but never really looked like they were going to break the record. For example, we had Billy Slater get 190 tries. Steve Menzies got over 180 tries. We've had, a lot of players recently over the last number of years get to 100. We've had a few other players get to 150 tries. But they never really looked like they were gonna break the record, simply because by the time they started getting up in numbers like Billy Slater, Steve Menzies, they were well into their 30s, and as we know, most players, especially when those guys played, as much as Billy Slater and Steve Menzies are recent, most players don't really go past the 33-34 mark. I know we had Cameron Smith, who went on to play until he was well into his 30s. We got Sherry Evans playing now that he was 37, but they're more the exception rather than the rule. Just simply because those players on the wing, if they don't keep their pace, it's hard to keep your pace when you're that age, to keep up with the younger players, and therefore, and you also started getting more and more injuries and that. And it's also harder for the mental side of things to keep, that you keep hearing from all these top players, that the mental side is the hardest thing for them to, go through a pre-season with all the training and all that. And so a lot of people thought that this record was never going to get broken, because people were just never in a realistic position to break the record. And then, as it happened, Alex Johnston just kept scoring try after try after try, and then it just got to when he was getting 170, 180, 190. A lot of people were thinking, well, he's at an age where he could break it. He could break this record. And he just kept scoring try after try after try, and then people were just like, oh, he's getting closer, he's getting closer, he's getting closer. And then last week, he was sitting on, I believe, 210 tries before the Dolphins game. And he Then he ended up scoring 2 tries. He ended up finishing on 212. A lot of people were saying that when Latrell Mitchell had free run to the line, he should have passed it to Alex Johnston so he could equal the record. But it's a hard thing to say because, like, he would have broken the he sat on 211 tries last week. 212 was a record, so he sat on 211 tries last week, and he would have equaled the record on 212 if Latrell Mitchell passed Johnson the ball, and he would have equaled the record last week, which meant his first try this week would have broken the record rather than his second. My opinion on that is that if Latrell Mitchell gave him the pass and he ended up scoring, that it would have really been. And I know there was a game against the Roosters a few years ago where they did give him quite a few easy passes to score his 5 tries against the Roosters a number of years back. But I just think to equal the record, you don't want a token, essentially and this is just me, I don't know about Alex Johnston, what he would think about this, but if it was me, I don't think if I'm breaking or even equaling a record like that, which has gone on for so long as it has, and 212 tries has been the record since 1973. Obviously, like I said, the record was broken in 1969, but the record of 212 was set in 1973 by Ken Irvine. And I don't know if I would want to equal or break the record on a token equivalent of a participation award try, which would have essentially been what that was. It would have been a participation award try. And I just think if you do that on a participation award try, I think it kind of cheapens the record. Whereas the 2 tries that he scored against the Roosters, especially the try that he broke it on, so the try that he equaled the record on was, as much as I hate to say, being a Roosters supporter, it was a good backline move by South Sydney, and yes, all he needed to do was catch the ball and put the ball down, but it was actually a good play by South Sydney where, it was, they created the overlap, catch pass, and, Latrell Mitchell passed in the ball and he goes in to score. Where it was off good play, where it wasn't like, alright, here you go, here's a token try. Like, South needed to actually earn it, and he was on the end of good play. And then the record try was David Fifita. He went made a half break. A couple of passes later, they got to Latrell Mitchell. He drew him past James Tedesco, and Alex Johnston ran away and scored a try. So, I reckon it was the best way to do it. As much as I hate it that it came against the Roosters, I think it was the best way for him, best way for the game. There was no, is he going up to the video ref? Is the video ref going to take it off him? There was no controversy on it. It was, and I think it was also, if I think the second try was the better visual for the game for him to break it, to be honest, because it shows him streaking away and scoring. Whereas, the first try, it was kind of, he had 5 meters to run with no one in front of him. And while no one was in front of him in the second try either, he was able to run 40, he had to run 40 meters or whatever it was to score. And I think it's a better visual. He had everyone storming the field. Personally, I would have liked it if it was the first try because it was right in front of me when it happened. And I know that's kind of contrary to what I just said. The better visual was the first try. It was the second try. But in a selfish sense, it would have been good if it was the first try because it happened right in front of me, or if he scored that try in the first half. But yeah, I think it's an incredible record. He could finish with, I don't know, if he stays injury free, he could end up with 250 or 260 tries because he's only 31, Alex Johnston, and which means with the way that sports science is today, the way that these guys train, they're so fit. He could play for another, and even if he only plays for another 2 years past as he retires at 33, around 33, that means he's got the rest of this year. So the Souths have another 22 games this year. There's another 2 seasons passes. He could, it's not out of the realms of possibilities that he scores 15 tries per year. The way that he scores tries. So he's at 213 now. If he scores another, 15 this year, another 15 next year, another 15 the year after. That's an extra 45 tries, and that puts him at 258. So, it's a very, very strong possibility that he gets to that. And, and if he goes even another couple of years past that, if he goes until let's say he goes for another 4 years past this, we could be looking at a possibility that he gets 300 tries. Because these are the kind of things that a lot of people go, well, it can never be done. Yes, people have scored 300 tries in the ESL. I believe Ryan Hall has scored 1 trillion tries over there. But it was something in the NRL that no one thought could happen. No one thought Ken Ovine's record could be broken. Because no other player got to 200 before. And then he broke it. Because the biggest thing I always say is records are there to be broken, right? No one thought that a player could get to 400 games. Then we had Cameron Smith. No one could beat people would have said no, back when Ken Ovine was playing, no one could get to 200 tries. Then he did. Could he get to 300? I reckon it depends on, obviously, if he stays injury free, how long he plays. That's all the kind of things. And, I reckon he could, and if he plays long enough. And, the question then becomes, can his record ever be broken? And, it's going to be tough to beat. Will it be impossible? No. Because he's done. Because if he's able to do it, someone else could be possibly do it. But the question is, when or if it will be broken? And personally, I think if, and this is a big if, it gets broken, it's going to be a long time in the future. This is not going to be broken in 10 years' time. I don't think it will be broken in 20 years' time. I don't think it will be broken by anyone soon. With sports science, with players playing longer, you will have players some absolute genetic freak come in, maybe 30 years from now, 50 years from now, come in, play until they're 38, they come in when they're 18, 19, play 20 years of first grade, play 400 games or score, we'll end up scoring 300 or whatever. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And that's not taking anything away from Alex Johnston. The memory of the storming off the field will live in supporters' minds, the players that played mind, even players at other clubs, they will remember this. Like, the fact that when he scored the try, they all went into the sheds and he actually changed jersey and got a special jersey for the occasion, with the golden 2, when all the other players had and for those that were like, oh, why did he get a golden 2? That's his number. That was his number. So all the other players had black numbers for sale. So he had like and he started with a black number. The jersey is red and green for those that don't know, and they all had black numbers. He got a golden number for the breaking of the record. And for those that didn't see what happened, don't know what happened, they're like, well, how could he change jerseys mid-match? They had a storming off the field, so it's kind of become a thing with Australian sports with these kind of records that if someone does something as spectacular as that, the crowd goes onto the field. The other visual was obviously Buddy Franklin, who was a Hawthorn and Sydney Swans great in the AFL, premiership player at Hawthorn, and then he came to Sydney, was one of the biggest Sydney buys in their history. Unfortunately, played in a couple of losing grand finals, but it was an absolute freak of a player. As much as I never watched AFL, like, I think all Australian sports fans, even if they don't support the code, knew who Lance Franklin was, Buddy Franklin. And when he kicked the 1,000th goal, the fans stormed the field. Same thing happened in the NRL when Alex Johnston scored the try. The crowd stormed the field, both the Roosters and Rabbitohs fans stormed the field, jumped all over him. All the players went into the sheds, and that's when he changed the jersey. It was quite a moment being at the game. I think it's one of those games where there was a lot of drop ball. There was a lot of things that I think on TV it probably wasn't the best visual game because there was a lot of drop ball and that kind of thing. But it was one of those games where if you're there in person, you had to be there in person to really soak it in, because it took a minute for people the crowds to go crazy, because during the game there was constant things coming up on the big screen at each end saying, don't storm the field, you're going to get a $5,500 fine, you're going to get a 2-year ban from the stadium, you're going to get charged. So a lot of people were apprehensive at first, but once the first, small group of people went, I think people realised, okay, and they kind of took all the heat from the security. That's when everyone decided to jump the field. I shouldn't say everyone, because I didn't jump the field, and I've got video of it. So that's not me trying to get out of a $5,500 fine. I actually didn't go onto the field as much as I would have liked to, but I didn't. But a lot of people did go onto the field, and it's going to be one of those things that it will live on forever, right? That visual, like, people will be viewing this, and if the record ever gets broken, whether it be 10 years time, 20 years time, 50 years time, I think it'll be closer to 50 if it does get broken. People are going to look back and go, what happened when Alex Johnston, because this is a thing that people look back on, and people go, what happened when Alex Johnston broke the record? Like, what did people do? What happened? Because in 50 years' time, a lot of people that were watching the game today won't be alive, unfortunately, or they'll be old and grey, and I'll be 80 years old if it's 50 years' time from now, and so I'll be an old man, and these are the kind of things that you'll tell your kids or grandkids about, like, oh, what happened? Where were you when that happened? And I can say, literally, the try that he equaled the record happened right in front of me. I was in Bay 3, so he literally caught the ball and ran around a little bit closer to the post. He caught the ball right in front of me, and I can say I was right there. And I can say I was there when he scored the second try to break it, and people are going to go, and people are going to see it, right? And I think this record, Alex Johnston, and I think it's a little bit insulting to Alex Johnston, where people go, oh, well, 180 of those tries, I think most of us could have scored, anyone that's played any kind of league. Well, the fact of the matter is he still needed to do it, right? He still needed to get the ball, put the ball down, And I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have scored a lot of the tries that he scored. And he's a great winger. He's, a humble bloke. I stayed around for the presentation. He's a humble bloke. He's a really, he comes across as a nice bloke. He's a great player. And I really hope this record stays forever. It's great that a lot of it has been based on him rather than the crowd itself. A lot of people are saying the record was great and the crowd was great because the crowd went on. They had their had their fun. They got off for the most part, got off pretty quickly. The game wasn't held up too long. It was about 50. I think it was 16 minutes. They were saying it wasn't too long. And I could understand the reaction of the NRL saying, we don't, this was before the game, we didn't want people storming the field because obviously there's a risk if people have got cans, they've squash them or anything. There could be some effect. It could sharp one of the players, and if someone's brought it onto the field, there's a possibility that one of the players could get injured, could get hurt. They could get crushed. There's thousands of people that could get crushed. Players could get badly injured. The referees could get hurt. Sideline, people on the sideline, the officials, reporters, and that could get hurt. So I could understand why they didn't want them to have it to happen when they scored, when it happened. But the visual, Alex Johnston getting picked up and the crowd going nuts, I think that's going to live on forever, right? This is going to be in ads for the NRL, whether they like it or not. They're going to market this for years to come. Because it's one of those moments that will live on forever. Obviously we didn't get it. It didn't happen when Cameron Smith broke the point scoring record. I think if that ever gets broken, I reckon that's more likely to be broken than the try scoring. I reckon if that ever happens again, if someone breaks Cameron Smith's record, the same thing will happen. And because people want to celebrate great moments, like I said, this is a great moment. Alex Johnston, a bloke that came from, he's a South junior, go on, play 200-odd games, score 200 tries. This is a great moment for Alex Johnston. And people want to celebrate, for all the negativity that's in the world right now, they want to celebrate a great moment. Alex Johnston's try is a great moment. This is a great thing for the game, and people wanted to celebrate with him. And, a kid that's a humble kid that's come from nothing. He's not some privileged kid that, had all the best training. He probably would have had great training at South, but, he's not a kid that went to elite private schools, had private coaching, had this, he didn't get it all handed to him on a silver platter, right? He had to work extremely hard to get where he got. He had a bad Achilles injury a couple of years ago where he wasn't sure if he would be able to keep his speed, and if he didn't keep his speed, would he keep his spot? Because keep in mind, he came into the squad, into the team, replacing another South Sydney scoring freak in Nathan Merritt. Nathan Merritt also, I know he played a couple of years at Cronulla as well, but he scored 150 tries over his career. Very good try scoring record, and then he got dropped for Alex Johnston. And then Alex Johnston actually ended up winning the 2014 grand final, and Nathan Merritt didn't get picked for that grand final. And a lot of people will say, I remember people saying like, "Oh, imagine if Nathan Merritt played, that would have been a good way to finish his career," but he didn't get it, and a lot of people were saying what a shame that was. But then now we can say a premiership winning player for South played in a played a role in their 43-year drought breaking premiership, goes on to break a 50 breaks the try scoring record that stood for 53 years. So he's broken two basic, like he played a part in breaking a club record, and he that stood since the 70s, and then he's broken an individual record that's stood since the 70s. So, and obviously the 12 years apart, the grand final happened in 2014 when South beat the Dogs. 12 years later, he's breaking the try-scoring record. And these are the kind of things that, these are the storylines that people want. That this humble kid didn't come from much. He was just an average kid in La Perouse, came through the system, had to face adversity, played in a record breaking grand final, broke the record for the most amount of tries, and then the crowd comes onto the field. I reckon it is the best thing that could have happened. As much as I hate to say it about a South player, he seems like a decent bloke, and it's absolutely wonderful for him that it happened. And hopefully this record stays for a long time, so we, people can, it's one of those where were you moments. And yeah, all I can say is congratulations, Alex Johnston. It was a great to be there to see it happen, and here's to many more tries. As for everyone else, thank you for listening, and catch you next time.